Thank you to our panel for that insightful discussion into the current and future states of DMD treatment and diagnosis. Our next session draws attention to adult patients with DMD and shares touching stories that bring hope to patients like Håkan worldwide. We would now like to welcome two very special guests, Håkan's mother, Debra Miller, founder and CEO of CureDuchenne, and Pat Furlong, the founding president and CEO of Parent Project Muscular Dystrophy. Pat and Debra will talk about the important role that the patient advocacy community plays in continuously raising the bar and catalyzing the development of the next generation of safe and effective medicines.
So how's Håkan? Good?
He's good. I don't have to tell you what anniversary milestones are like every year. So it's always tough, but fortunately, he's got his career. He's busy. He doesn't have a lot of time to think about it, and he just keeps going forward. But it's still a gut punch every day.
Yeah, it is. So many years after I lost my voice, it's still a gut punch. I think that you probably, as I do, we look at these young guys getting married and not that they can't, but you want to be there, right? You want to steal a little piece of that joy. You want to see them succeed. Håkan's doing amazing things, but it is, still a gut punch that he is losing strength. And I don't think we'll ever get over the gut punches. I just don't.
It's an interesting phenomenon in that he's done well enough that he's been able to operate in kind of more of a normal situation because he was, he's been ambulatory for so long. And so his frame of reference and comparators, because guys all compare themselves, right? Were normal, healthy kids. And now that's changing. And it's the hardest thing is to see the realization come over him that, yeah, he does really have Duchenne, right? And that he's following a path, albeit later, but it's still a path.
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, I think that's one of the important things about Duchenne Action Month as they've really focused on different things to focus on adults, because I think in the progression, regardless of whether you have slower or more rapid progression, there's a time when it must wash over you as a young man that this, in fact, is the progression you're going to see. And I've always wondered about how they feel inside their bodies. When this loss occurs, do they know it, or does it occur by symptoms, or how does it? So I really applaud you especially, and Håkan, and certainly your whole family about encouraging independence, because I think that so many times we want to fully protect these young men and not let them experience friends, other people taking care of them, other activities, jobs, etc. So I think that's been amazing. And I really applaud all the work that you've done to make sure that Håkan is independent.
Years ago, when Håkan was diagnosed, 18 years ago, we were told, obviously, like everybody is, go home, love your child, there's nothing you can do. And that you basically will be saying goodbye to him when he's 18. And all I could think of was this image of all of our friends going to their kids' graduations and going off to college, and that we would be standing at a gravesite. And I know, Pat, you've experienced that. And my heart goes out to you. It's, as time is moving on, there are these guys that are being in no way left behind, but not able to participate and see the benefit of all the hard work that you've done and that a lot of people have done. Just last night, I had a conversation with Håkan, and it was kind of this realization, that he is going to need help. And I'm there with him, stretching him and realizing that I've spent 18 years working, and as you have, and there are approved drugs, and we've contributed to programs that are approved drugs now, and yet there's nothing for him at 24 years old. He doesn't qualify. He's never qualified for a clinical trial here in the US because of mutation or age. And it's just always been just a little bit out of grasp for him. And this is happening all over. And so I agree that, as we look towards this upcoming month and we honor and celebrate the young men with Duchenne, I think just holding out hope that they can go to college, that they can have careers, And for Hawken, the next thing is girlfriend and marriage, right? So we just need to keep raising that bar for all of them.
I think that when we first really worked as a community on care considerations or standards of care, right, and those were international, that really demonstrated to us that we were able to apply known medical tools to improve and, well, delay progression with steroids and improve respiratory and cardiac, and certainly attention to the heart. I think with approved therapies, we're certainly bending that curve. I agree with you about clinical trials and opportunities for participation. Typically, as we both know, those clinical trials are not over the age of 18 often. There are one or two, but typically they focus on a much younger population. And again, I think moving this bar includes participation. It includes making sure that adults participate in clinical trials, that as we look at gene therapy and the hope for a delivery of a microdystrophin or some point later, CRISPR technologies, I think looking at this population to say, you can halt progression at any time. And if you can do that, then life can really expand in terms of horizons. So I think that we as a community have to focus on that and move this bar on a continuous basis. And I agree with you and Paul that we keep pushing out this bar with known medical tools, appropriate care, the opportunity for clinical trials. I think who best to be able to tell us whether something is benefiting them. While I agree with outcome measures, I think that really looking at the quality of the life of Hawken and other adults will make us more able to measure the impact of therapies.
Yeah, there's a lot we can learn from a clinical trial with a different cohort, with an older cohort that perhaps is not used as a registration trial, but as a safety trial. Otherwise, we're going to have to go sequentially instead of in parallel to be able to find out in older patients whether these drugs and therapies are safe and effective. And I think we have the tools now to do that. It's basically the will to do that. And I think that will has to come from a lot of different stakeholders, whether obviously families are very motivated for this to happen, advocacy organizations like ours, regulators. The more flexible they can be and the more that they can actually encourage innovation to help patients that lie outside of the inclusion criteria is going to be very important.
Yeah, no, I think that it is time to stand up for these adults. It is time to make sure that they are included, to demand inclusion, not only in terms of appropriate care, but also in terms of access to these therapies and participation in the clinical trials that are relevant to them. I think that the best gift we can give them for their hard work to allow this whole field to build on their shoulders, the research that's been done, is to give them opportunities to participate and certainly to access the therapies once approved.
We also have some really exciting opportunities, maybe not tomorrow, but hopefully soon, with new therapies that are non-AAV based delivery mechanisms, which I think hopefully, if successful, could be transformational for older patients. Delivering a massive amount of AAV vector into an older patient is risky, no matter what immune modulation protocols you're using. So we've spent a lot of time talking and funding projects that are using non-viral delivery. The ultimate would be non-viral full-length dystrophin. And there are a lot of technologies out there that are quite interesting. And we're committed to seeing that happen and making sure not only can older patients be involved in this that might have the neutralizing antibodies, but also so far it looks like some of these therapies are not going to be durable forever and that they might need to be redosed. And therefore, the more we can fund and support programs where redosing for significant therapies is available, I think it's going to be very transformational also.
So I think trying to accelerate the pathways, not only in the US, but worldwide, is going to be important. So looking at how do we get these approved? How do we get access to them? But you're right, if we could deliver a full-length dystrophin, if we could have better antisense therapies as we see second and third generation come forward, and one day CRISPR. So I think that there is so much hope on the horizon for patients with Duchenne and Becker muscular dystrophy. And I'm very hopeful that we can do trials that are very inclusive so that people don't have to wait long periods of time as we get the safety on these therapies and certainly having a pathway forward to our approval. The boys need and deserve nothing less than our attention and our approach to therapies that is inclusive of them, regardless of age and stage.
Absolutely. We can't expect for a young man with Duchenne to actually improve upon a therapy, but if we can slow the progression, hopefully the ultimate would be even to maintain. So we need to be able to measure that. Regulators need to be able to understand how to measure maintenance or slowing progression. And I think that the more, again, that we can work together as a community to help them understand what's important to us is going to be really valuable moving forward.
Yeah, I don't think there's a family in the world that doesn't get up every morning and wish for this disease to stop,
Yes.
right? To halt progression. And I think that we are really working forward to combination therapies, to therapies that will slow or stop progression. And certainly maybe one day the ability to build some muscle with some stem cell therapies as they come online. So I think there's a great deal of hope in this community. But I think we have to really concentrate on adults to be inclusive, because we can't, at the end of the day, say wait any longer. And we've been saying wait, it's not your time. We're going to focus on this younger generation because we have sensitive outcome measures. But I think it's time to say we have to focus on the entire cohort of patients with this diagnosis, from newborn screening through adulthood, so that we learn as much as we can and give as many opportunities for halting that progression as possible.
Absolutely. And in the meantime, we need to make their lives easier. And so, we're working with an organization that is trying to get airplanes to have wheelchair seating in there. And I mean, it seems like a natural, but the bureaucracy involved in it is tremendous. And so, again, working together to try and overcome some of this red tape, just to get the guys, the ability to travel and to be independent. I think there's a lot of ways, a lot of areas that haven't been touched that I think really need this attention now.
Yeah, I agree with that, Deborah. I think that there has to be policies in place, both not just in the airlines, but across, right? So the independence is really encouraged, and there's opportunities to live by yourself with carers, if that's what you would like to do. Opportunities to attend college, and not just local colleges, to go away and to have a caregiver or a set of carers that could be able to assist you going to class, taking notes, etc. I think you need independence in terms of employment, because many of these young men who are employed, and one day if we return to offices, that they will have a carer with them to assist with the personal needs that they may have, or transportation needs that they have, and policies that ensure that there isn't a threshold to whatever you make will maybe negate some of the services that you need. So I think that really independence, participation, opportunity, I think all of that is really essential for our adult men who can and should be successful, and should have opportunities to give you and I grandchildren, right? That's really the ultimate, as we see these young men grow up and grow old and then someday take care of us.
We compare ourselves, and I know that, between our two organizations, I think we should both be proud of the progress that we've made, but we've done it on a shoestring, and we've had to fight for every single success that we've had. And comparing to a large disease, whether it be cancer, heart disease, whatever, our resources are so scarce and so precious, and we have to fight together and not just work together, but like hustle together and make it happen, and be able to be infectious with our sense of urgency to, not only our community, but outside our community, to get people involved to help.
I think that making connections within the Duchenne communities, and we have a terrifically strong community in the US as well as worldwide, but outside, because some of these policies that need to change are generalizable, right? The wheelchair policy on airlines is not just a single Duchenne problem. So I think where we connect with each other, with outside of our organizations, and you're right, if we had extraordinary resources, but I think together we've done some extraordinary things. Now, if we can really continue that momentum going forward, I think we'll see the benefits of all that hard work. But it is true, the more resources you have doesn't necessarily change the timeline, but it sure does change the opportunities.
I believe we have momentum, much more than when I first met you, Pat, much more than even 10 years ago. And I think the pace of research, the pace of improvements are moving exponentially. So we just have to keep up that trend so that the guys that are with us today can continue to live really meaningful and healthy lives.
I think I agree with you. For new patients diagnosed today, it's a different day than it was 10 years ago, certainly much different than it was when my sons lived, when there was an empty field. So I think when I think back about that movie Field of Dreams, I think, together we've got this field of dreams. We just need to make sure that that field of dreams is full of hope and continues to advance so that one day a child will be diagnosed and they'll be treated instantly. And we'll see the fruits of that labor. But I agree with you. There's a great deal of hope and a great deal of comfort to say that we are on good paths with really a terrific field of people moving it forward.
It's hard to say when exactly it will happen, but I do believe there will be a cure for this disease. And I think that it will be manageable at some point. So we just need to make it happen sooner.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. One day soon. And that's what we're all hoping for.